Hey there, I'm Mike Henry, and this is my Procreate 5 demo for the piece I call Neon Beach. So this here is one of the sketch cards from when I did my Pink Hair Girls book. If you have this sketch out here, I'm painting it now, so that's kind of cool. But anyways, I did a bunch of these. I cranked them out really quickly, but a couple of them I liked, so I kept them around, and this one in particular I thought, hey, let's do something with it. So the first step, once we bring that photo into Procreate, is just to clean it up. We need to do cleaning up as far as getting the lines super usable, and then we also need to double check some of the anatomy and just make sure that everything is fine and working together. One of the main things is her butt's a little small, to be honest. I think that her proportions are a little bit off, and so we need to take her whole pelvis and her legs and get it a little bit bigger to support the rest of the anatomy. Also, her left hand is kind of in a slightly awkward position, so we just want to change that a little bit. And then otherwise, the rest of it is pretty good. We're just going to be doing some sort of like flow and gestural alterations, and that's kind of it. You can see right there I brought her forearm down a little bit. So this video is moving a little bit quicker than normal so that we can get through it and we're not going to be too repetitive and take too long to look at some of these things, because this piece is largely no different than several other pieces. The only thing you could say is slightly different is color choices, kind of, because the whole thing is pretty neon overall, hence Neon Beach. So we've got our hand roughly sketched in there, and we're gonna come back to that in a minute. Here we're just painting in the details of that face as far as its structure is concerned, not actual details, but the details of its shape. And you can see she started as blonde. I originally was going to do like an orange to yellow fade, and then that just sort of changed as the piece took shape. At this point, I didn't know what I was going to really do with this. I liked the character. I thought, let's finish that, but I didn't really know anything beyond that. So I had her super pale, and then with this blonde skin, or excuse me, blonde hair, super pale skin, blonde hair, and then I was like, oh, that'll be kind of fun. She's in like beachwear, but she's super pale. And then I thought, like, yeah, what if I did like a, like a techno beach, because she wouldn't be out at the beach, she'd be like in a club, or I don't know. It was kind of a mess, but ultimately where I ended up was the idea of putting her against like almost like a poster that looks like it is from like a synthwave album thing or some shit. And then she is not really like a beach going looking person, but then she's got like this two-piece on that is brightly colored, and that's kind of where the whole thing ends up. Honestly, I can't really explain it in a logical, hey, this was a great idea and I did it kind of way. It was more like I stumbled there. I had a character I wanted to paint, and now I got to justify it, basically. So what we start doing here is, once I get her, I was gonna make the top and the bottom match, but then once I thought, hey, let's do two different colors, I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's do pink because I love pink, and let's do yellow because it plays nicely off of that. And then once we get them in, maybe we can do something graphically with the background to tie into that. That was the first thought. So at one point I was like, oh, let's make a black background, and then instantly I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's do a bright pink one. It'll be the same color as her top, so that'll blend into that. We'll do some graphic yellow in the background that'll blend into the bottoms, and then a blue one to blend into her hair, and then it'll kind of be like the graphics of the background are merging with the illustration of the foreground, kind of. And then I put that texture on everything too to make sure that just had a little bit of visual interest there. We eventually abandoned this, but for the longest time I operated as this is what I was going to do. I think if I was going to stop and quickly highlight the learnings from this, or like what I want to project to you listening, like what I want you to take from this, is this was about a visual that I thought was good, but I didn't really know where it was going to go, and I had to kind of follow where it was naturally leading me. So once I was to this point, where I have a pink background and I've got the character and I'm just doing the AO pass, I think to myself, okay, do the AO pass, do some sort of a direct light pass. I think I'll light her as though she's like a model in a photo shoot, so there's just like a light shooting straight at her kind of thing, so she's casting very tightly like back onto herself instead of a throwing a shadow at a long distance or having it come from the side or something like that. And then it's like I'll figure it out as I go. As long as I sort of say to myself, I will make this be an artificial environment, then I can do a lot of things with it. I wasn't going to put her in a very complex background, so I could do whatever I want as far as what that background was going to be. And since right now we were operating with it being super graphic, I didn't really have to worry about that much at all. One thing you'll also notice is that I stylize her nose more than I normally do, and so it was just in general kind of playing with things. There wasn't a lot of, oh, this is going to be great. In fact, to be completely honest, I thought this piece was like a train wreck. Like halfway through it, I was like, what the hell am I doing? And then towards the end, I wasn't even entirely sure. Oh, also, I originally did not paint this with the turpentine brush. I originally painted it with a bunch of other brushes, just trying out some of the new Procreate brushes, and that's why you can see some interesting anomalies in the skin. And I thought that that was going to be, actually in the skin and also in the bottoms, you can see it. And I thought, hey, this could be like a fun thing, but it ended up being kind of unwieldy, and I just wanted to knock this one out. I didn't really want to do anything too risky, so it was really kind of a conflicted piece. Like as I'm describing it, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth around like, what is this thing supposed to be? So process-wise, we're at the point where the AO pass is actually done. I'm keeping the bikini and her hair mostly flat. And so we've now done all the AO, so we're free, since the features are defined, to go in and put in some skin tone variation and other little color adjustments like makeup. So we've got the red on her nose, the red on her ears, the red on her cheek. We will eventually throw that on her fingers. And then we've got this pink eyeshadow, and then doing a little bit of sort of like a 5 o'clock shadow from where her head is shaved. And then we've got her purple lips. And so we've got that all figured out for the most part. Then when we zoom out, we're going to handle the fingers there, getting some red into it. And I kind of had this weird idea. It just kept popping into my mind that, like, she didn't really look like a beachgoer. So I was like, it's kind of funny. What if they brought in, like, a model who didn't have a tan to have, like, to be doing, like, beach stuff? But I couldn't make her more pale because she was already almost perfectly white. So I start putting some darkening on her forearms and her shoulders, just like she's got, and like her face, just like she's got like a little bit of a tan from what she would normally have as a person walking down the street. Her legs are pale, her torso's pale, and I don't know why, I just like kept having this like weird narrative in my head about that. And so as this goes on, now we've moved on to the direct shadow, which is what we're putting in right now. When I posted this piece on Instagram, people really dug it, and I was surprised because, like I said, it was like conflicted from like start to finish. But I do think that I ended up pulling it together into something that was kind of cool. But it's not like, it's not a piece like some of my others where I'm just like, oh, I fucking crushed that. Instead, it's just like, yeah, I finished it. I'm happy with it, but I'm not gonna celebrate, let's say. I don't know, it's growing on me. I put it up as my wallpaper on my phone the other day, which I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit in this video. But I put it up as my wallpaper, and it's kind of grown on me, which is, I guess, good. Okay, now I'm just making tons of excuses. Let's finish up talking about what's happening here on screen. So continuing with that theme that I'm kind of riding the train of where this piece is going, you can see that I've got the shadows painted in, and now I'm starting to play with the graphic design elements of the background. I reduced the opacity of the yellow. I kind of like the way that orange looked, and so then I started repainting in the graphic design elements to be done with the paintbrush so that they looked a little more natural. Then I put the texture from the background into the bikini so that that completely matched, which is what you see there toggling on. And so these are all just a bunch of decisions where I've got a lot of the base of this done, and I'm saying to myself, okay, can this work? You just saw me test my lighting right there, putting a little dab on her shoulder, a little dab on her cheek. Actually, I was even showing my son at this point. He was like, oh, what are you doing with that? And so I was showing him. So you see that go on there a little bit quickly. And now I start applying it across everything. Now, I didn't want her to be shiny. I didn't want it to really truly look like she was on a beach and she was like sweaty or in the sun or whatever it is. So everything is just to give it a little bit of extra shape, but not actually be super high keying and super shiny and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Still trying to keep that idea of she's just like at some photo shoot and she maybe not be the most apropos person to be selling swimwear kind of thing. So now we're doing the shine on the hair, doing it very similarly to how we've done it in the past. The main fatter layer is the same layer as what all the other lighter parts are, the highlights. And then there's a new layer that's the thinner streak in that shine that's sort of the inner hotter part of it. What's coming up next is I start incorporating some lines, because when I toggle the lines on and off, I like the way that looks sometimes. And then I said, okay, let's just bring that in. If you go back to some of my old videos, or older, some of my videos from like a month ago, the one of Frankenstein and Dracula, where I'm doing that a bit more, I thought, hey, let's do it in something like this, something that's got kind of a lighter vibe to it, kind of more of a fun thing. Let's put that in there too and give her a little bit of a stylistic treatment in that way. So you can see me putting it in certain spots, and then I'm also rounding out certain shapes a little bit more to make sure they really read, like under her jawline and around the back of her head and things like that. So we're just at this point putting finishing touches on it, quote unquote, without knowing whether or not I'm finishing it. It's a way to sort of see, okay, is that gonna take it the rest of the way, or do I, after putting that on, do I still have more work that needs to be done? So now we're going to speed things up for a little bit here. You're going to see a lot of stuff happen, but I think that it's all really minor. This is the tweaky stuff, and it's not that I'm trying to hide it, because I'm sure you would be kind of interested in it, but to be honest, it's a lot of just like moving this shadow a little, painting this a little bit in, doing this little adjustment. There's not much. In fact, you can see even while it's going by quickly, lots of just like stuff is happening, but it's all little flickers and minor stuff. Then here I try some shadow ideas using this texture that's in the new, it's a brush, but it's got a texture on it that's in the new version of Procreate. And to be honest, it doesn't really work out that well. I mean, we're all suckers for like a shaft of light that's creating a shadow, but I just don't think that it was truly working. So you will see that come back in another form, and we will address that and go a little bit slower around that time so that we can see that. But I just kind of wanted to burst through this little sequence of complete indecision and not really knowing where this was going. I mentioned in previous videos, the last couple, with this new chromatic aberration technique that I've been using, I've been also looking for opportunities to do it. So here, for instance, I'm playing a lot with it since this has already got this 80s-y, synth-wavy kind of vibe. I was like, okay, well, let's play with that a little bit more and see what we can do with it. So all this crazy toggling that you're seeing is me just turning layers on and off and doing the chromatic aberration trick and then adjusting things and then redoing it. And that's why you're seeing all that flipping around and everything. Now right here is a stopping point. This is where I said to myself, is this final? Is this where I really want this to be? And something that I've talked about in the past, I mentioned that this is my wallpaper. This one is no longer my wallpaper. I did a really quick screen grab right here so you can see what I'm talking about. I actually set it as my wallpaper on my phone as a way for it to always be in my face. And then I can say to myself, is this worth posting somewhere? Is this worth sharing with people? Because right now, am I getting sick of it or not? And it turned out I was getting sick of it pretty quickly. I felt like not enough was going on there. So here we are trying something new. I'm acknowledging the sort of synth-wavy aspects of this. I obliterate the graphic design thing from the background, and I start working on more of a scene. Now, I still want it to be a fake scene though. It's printed like on a wall or on a poster behind her, and then she's casting a shadow onto it because I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to actually put her in some sort of a weird graphical place. So we've got that painted in. It's deliberately rough so that it can look painterly still. I don't want it to look too pristine like it was actually computer generated or something like that, because that's just not what we're going for. And then we are doing the chromatic aberration trick again. You can see it right there, trying it out. How does this look? what if it's more extreme? Does that damage the image too much to where I'm not really into it? And that's kind of what I'm testing out at this point. And then I start saying, okay, you know what? I'm no longer really doing that thing where I'm doing this graphic element in the background, so I don't need the bikini to be in individual, or not in individual pieces, but to be the same color as the background entirely. Maybe I can add some more visual interest there. So in a minute, you're going to see me come in and put on the patterns, the stripes basically, that I have in the final version. You'll also see some shadows come in the bikini top, and a couple of and the hair is more rendered now than it was before. It's not like crazy rendered, but it is more rendered. And so this is me this is me finally completely abandoning that previous graphic idea where the bikini and the hair were flat and locked into the background in some graphical way. So now we start putting the stripes in. I can't remember, honestly, if the stripes were the yellow. I think they were the yellow with a reduced opacity because I liked the way that looked before. And then when we get to the bottoms, I couldn't do that. So I didn't like flip it and use like a pink on yellow. I just used like a really rich orange and then lowered the opacity of that too. I thought that it's kind of funny how some really subtle things can make you go from disliking something to liking something. And I think that changing this background and actually putting the stripes on the bikini made me like everything a whole lot more. It's not that it's a seismic shift in any way, but it was enough that I was like, okay, there's something now interesting going on here. Oh, one other thing I'll note is I did slowly adjust the eyes and the lips in terms of color, and then I made the plug in her ear yellow instead of black like it originally was to tie into everything else. And the bracelet got added at some point. At the end, all I did was round out the corners. I thought that would just be a fun touch. And this here is the final image. To be honest, it's kind of, in some ways for me, it was salvaging something that I didn't think was really going well, but I do like the way that it finally came out, and some other people did as well, and so I'm really happy about that. So hopefully you enjoyed watching this video and how everything came together. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you on the next one. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.